having their children, maybe doing remote learning and they don't have Wi-Fi or, the technology at home to even support them, or they didn't, have the same educational experience that their children are having, and so they're kind of having to be their teacher at home, and they feel like, and they're feeling like, well, I don't know any of this. I don't even know how to support my own child in their education, much less what am I supposed to do with my education and my career if I'm out of work or if I'm underemployed and in a job where I can't even meet, my basic needs and take care of my family. And so, boy, if people weren't hard on themselves already, 2020 just gave everybody a blow to their ego. And it's hard to come back from that because we're still dealing with that. It's not like we've turned a really huge corner where, the economy and employment options, and education, especially for children, in K through 12, has been so substantially different where it's turning people's lives around in a positive direction. So people are still struggling. And
even
they're
if
still
it had
beating themselves up, beating themselves up for where they are and where they feel like they're supposed to be, right?
Even if we had turned a corner, there are already opportunities to feel like you're less than as a parent, but to be thrown in the teacher role as well, I can't imagine.
Right. And then and the teachers, the educators who are working in the ISDs and working, the community colleges and the universities, they know their students are humans, and they know their students are, part of families that are also struggling too. And so if they're disconnected from their students and their students' families, they're worrying more, and their anxiety levels are higher, their stress levels are higher because they feel like they're not making, they may feel like they're not making as big as impact as they want to and need to, by not having the in-person, and face-to-face interactions they're used to having. And just think about how many kids and young adults, a lot of their structure, a lot of their stability in life comes from, their routine and their educational experience and the schedule that they have.
Not to mention the social connections.
Right. So, and their social, and psychological development, coming through, the interactions that they would have with their peers and with their teachers and counselors. So everybody is beating themselves up, because they feel like they're not achieving their full potential of where they want to be, personally, but also in terms of their impact on others and the work that they do. If the work that somebody does is in relation to serving others, through education or through social service or through healthcare or, whatever it may be, if you're in service to others through whatever your career is and you're physically distant from those that you typically serve, then that makes an impact on your sense of worth and your value.
Absolutely, it does. So, remind us of the name of the book and the author.
So, Dr. Carol Dweck, it's D-W-E-C-K.
Okay.
If you haven't seen her, she had several years ago, she did a great TED Talk where she talked about the power of not yet. And it's wonderful. TED Talks are all pretty fun, right?
Yes.
It's like 10 to 12 minutes of like, wow.
Total addiction for a cognitive person.
Yes. But her book is Growth Mindset, and it's about recognizing that learning, it's a continuum. It's not something that's set, at birth where, obviously we have innate strengths.
Yes.
There are some individuals who enjoy math or science more so than, the arts or poetry, or music. So, we have our innate strengths and we have our innate preferences.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that we aren't at the potential to learn new skills and strengths. And that just, the growth mindset is about recognizing that learning happens on a continuum. And it's not all or nothing, and it doesn't all happen at the same rate and at the same time as other individuals. And so it's giving yourself permission and acceptance to recognize that, and that we can learn, different skills and develop different abilities, over time. And it's not going to look the same as it looks for everybody else. And it's not always about, in fact, it's frequently not about, willpower, and that, well, if you really wanted to be good at math, you could be. You're just not working hard enough at it.
Yeah.
Or if you wanted to have this job, you just need to work hard enough, and you would do it. Again, going back to that, you see the 5-minute news story about, a young adult or an individual who broke the mold and rose above their circumstances, and you're like, well, see, if you just worked hard enough, you could do it too. But you have to recognize that each individual is unique, and that their learning curve is going to be different, and that the cast of characters that played an important role in their life is different too.
Yes,
and so instead of assuming, and taking that hands-off approach that, well, if somebody just wants it, they can work hard enough, and then I don't need to worry, I don't need to help, I don't need to provide a support in any way, because, just that person just needs to own it and accept it and work hard enough, and then the universe will take care of them. Well, the universe isn't, indebted to us. The universe is not required to play by our rules, and, we make a vision board and everything happens our way. It doesn't.
You're right.
It's okay to have dreams and okay to have that vision board, and you also need to recognize that asking for help and having important, positive, supportive, influential people along the way is necessary too. We don't achieve things, we typically don't achieve things just by ourselves. There's usually somebody or more than one person, or circumstance in our life that makes an impact. Somebody that is our cheerleader, somebody that is our go-to person in our sounding board, somebody that is a mentor to us, somebody who inspires us, and somebody who we want to be a positive role model to. So we don't always know all the influences that somebody has in their life to get them to where they are. There's very few people who really are truly an overnight, overnight success or self-made person. There's always resources. There's always other influences along the way that help that person. And we have to recognize that it's okay to ask for help and to acknowledge that we need other people and we need other help and support and resources in our life to help us get to where we need to be, because people do need people. Barbara Streisand was right all these years later. Right? Because people do need people.
Well, so let me present the other side of it. And a little bit, maybe it sounds a little bit jaded to some out there, but you're not just going to walk up to somebody likely and them go, sure, let me show you the way. I have found that I had to really beat down a few doors, because the majority, I don't want to say they don't care, but they're in a position of needing to take care of them. And people aren't necessarily just really willing to come forth before COVID. Now let's enter disappointed, hurt, lonely, sad, even depressed at times with people because of some of the insults and all the comments that are out there on social media, to the point where people are just like, I give up. I wanted to believe in humanity, and I'm seeing firsthand that some really harsh truths. So I want to present the other side of that too.
Right. Yeah. There's, I would say it's good to have a healthy level of skepticism and paranoia about the world.
Yes.
And if you live your life, in that corner, if you pin yourself into that corner where you believe anyone who's asking for help is wanting to take advantage of you, or anybody who's needing support is conning you, or it's really a scam, and really they don't need as much help as they're letting on. You have to remember that yes, there's always going to be a small portion of the population that maybe isn't as honest or genuine and doesn't need as much help maybe as they let on, but it's so insignificant compared to the number of people that do.
And that may be their way, the only way they know how to ask for help. And I'm not saying,
exactly.
I mean, we all need some grace a little bit, but.
Right. And if when you give of yourself, of whatever talent or time or treasure you have to offer, it really needs to be about you and feeling rewarded and feeling like you're giving back. Because you give to someone else of whatever you have to offer, that person isn't now accountable to you. If I want to give somebody $20, or if I want to go volunteer my time, at a nonprofit and, pack backpacks for kids going to school and give them school supplies, or work at a women's shelter, it needs to be about the bigger picture, and that I'm making a difference where I feel like I can, versus, okay, everybody I help, they need to follow my timeline and my rules. And if I give you this money, then you need to tell me how you're going to spend it. Or if I volunteer my time here, I need to know that you're going to make the choices that I want you to make. We can't expect individuals that we help to be beholden to us, because they're not.
It makes it complicated.
Yeah.
You can only control what's in your skin. And I'll tell you how I make peace with that, Tracy, is that I'm held accountable for what I do, what I give, what I bless. That's part of my ethical structure, okay? What they do with it is not mine. That's theirs.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't have to solve all of that.
People are still allowed to make their own choices. But if you do nothing, then nothing will change. Right?
Right.
So give what you can in the way that you can, and recognize that you do have something to offer. Everybody has something to offer. When you're talking about stories that inspire me, our students who just come from just sometimes in some situations, it's like, I don't even know how they got here. How did they not give up? Because they maybe had family members that were imprisoned, or who their parents, tragically died at a young age, and they've been raised by different family members or friends, or they bounced around from, home to home or town to town, and didn't have a stable living situation ever. Yet they end up at our college, they end up at our door, and something in them, or somebody, or more than one person in their life told them, you deserve more and you deserve better. You have potential. They saw they're not yet, right? They saw them for what they could be, and they helped them believe in themselves. And they think that they're not inspirational, because they have struggled so much, and because they see themselves as so small and so unworthy of being where they are. When I'm like, you are more worthy of being here than I am, and you inspire me. It doesn't matter that I have degrees on the wall. That means nothing. If I had lived your life, I don't even know that I could be here. I don't even know that I would have made it as far as you've made it. You are so strong and so just powerful beyond all measure, right? Like you don't see all the potential and all the beauty and all the strength that you have. And so just being here, you are inspiring me, and you are inspiring other individuals that maybe you don't even know their story yet, and you don't know that maybe they're struggling with some of the things you struggle with. And just by knowing you and by seeing you and how you're here, that's going to change the course of somebody else's life.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because I can tell you that when I walked up to the university doors with no money in hand, I didn't know how I was going to do it. I just knew I was supposed to be there. Everything in my body said you're supposed to be there. I definitely did not feel like an inspiration to anyone, but it did not take long until a younger cousin looked at me and said, wow, Aunt Tammy, or not Aunt Tammy, wow, Tammy, I want to be you. And that's all I needed to keep me going through those classes. So a good reminder that you're an inspiration when you don't know you're going to be. But also, speaking of inspiration, I'm glad you had those degrees, because that allowed you to be put in the position, and you have been pivotal at lifting people up there. Pivotal. When they wanted to walk out, I personally got to witness it, that you were pivotal. So thank you for that.
Well, I'm thankful for the opportunity to do that. There were times